Hey guys, so back with another episode for the 2001 Dodge Ram. Now in this episode I have a couple things I'm going to discuss before I start working. And one of the things I'm going to discuss is the most hated and scared thing about people who are working on their own vehicles. And it has to do with paint. Let's get to the video. So, what do we got here? The tailgate. Now, I don't know if you guys can see this. I ended up actually finally going out and buying myself some horses because I never had any. And so now we got some horses. Now, one of the things, if you guys can see here, and I'm going to try to get it angled right, just so you guys can see it. It's a little tough here. Let me change the camera movement. Alright, so you see these like weird little bumps or specks that's in the paint? Let's see if I get it at this angle here. Trying to angle up with the lights and stuff. So you kind of looks like it's dirty, but it's not. You know, I wipe my hand across it, and they're still there. Alright, and it looks like about 1,000 pimples. The best way to describe it, it kind of looks like glossy sandpaper or a whole bunch of acne, and it looks like my tailgate's got a whole bunch of acne, which sucks on it because that tailgate looks phenomenal in person, and it looks even better on camera because the camera is adjusting the light that it's not getting, so it's a lot brighter on camera, but it's actually a little bit more darker blue in person, kind of like back here. This dark blue here is really what I'm kind of seeing in person. But you look at it at certain angles, it looks great, right? So as you can see, these bumps are literally all over this thing, and they're actually more on some sides than they are on others. Like over here, there's not too many of them, but if I migrate over here, there's a lot more. So what is that called? How do you fix it? How do you prevent it? And what did I do wrong to cause it? We're going to discuss that quick, and then we're going to jump into working. So don't go anywhere. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends, because just like you, I'm going to be fixing this for the first time. So I've never fixed anything like this before. I've had this in my past on stuff that I painted, but I didn't care because it wasn't something that was in the public eye. It was something that was just getting put on something, so I just really didn't care what the heck it was. I thought it was just dirt and stuff, but apparently what this is called is solvent pop. Solvent pop, and there's three different kinds. So you got solvent pop, which is what the little pimply bumps look like. And they're literally, if you feel them, they feel like bumps, air bubbles. Then there's what's known as a fisheye. And it's about the same size, but instead of a bump, it's like a hole, like a pothole. And that's even worse, because it's a hole that's in the paint. So your paint is like this if it's a pop, and if it's a fisheye, it's like this. That's even worse, at least in my feeling. Because if you think about it, you know, at least a bump you can kind of smooth out, but a hole you got to try to fill. And if you ever seen the highways, they don't know how to fill those holes. So imagine trying to fill that on something that you want people to look at and hope it's as smooth as the road that you hope you can drive on one day. Then the other one is known as orange peel, and if you think about what an orange peel or a grapefruit looks like, it's got that weird kind of squiggly lines and stuff in it. I've seen that on stuff I painted. I thought it was kind of cool. I painted something, I don't know where it is, but I know it has orange peel on it. I never knew there was a terminology for it. I just thought that it was the chemical reaction and stuff that I did, and I got that. So anyway, so this is a solvent pop situation. Now solvent pop, how to fix it, and how to prevent it. Let's start off with how to prevent it. Before, in case you don't have this and you're working on this, or you're planning on working on a truck and doing this stuff too in your garage for the first time, and you want to know how the fuck do I not get this? It's simple. I screwed up. When I painted the fenders, I had everything on a list that I got from Paint Society. Check them out on YouTube. Guy's really great, very informative. I watched a lot of his videos before even filming my own, and doing all this paint I learned from him. So when I did the fenders were under a controlled environment. I had my space heater running, I had my thermometer going in the garage. Alright, my thermometer has a temperature, and at the bottom it tells me the humidity. Very basic thermometer, no electronics, just very old school way of doing it. I feel like that's the most accurate. Had the fender sitting there, had the thermometer in front of it, had the space heater going to heat the garage up, had the door shut, it was pouring rain outside. I had it down to a science where the temperature that was on the thermometer matched the requirements that had to go on the paint. Or not match the requirements so I can paint. Sorry, let me reword that. And then also looking at the paints itself had stated only between, I think it was like 70 and 75, something like that, and below like 50% or 50% humidity, some shit like that. Read your paint. Either it's in a can or it's in a gallon. Read your paint. That is your specs on how you got to prepare your surface. Or not prepare your surface, prepare the area that you're going to paint. So if I was doing this outside, it would have been even worse. And I even said in the video when I was painting this tailgate, I was afraid of the pollen, but I still had the garage door open too much. Stupid me. So how do I paint inside of a small garage and not fumigate my house because my garage is attached to my house? Basically the way I did it was I popped the garage door open the size of a paint can or the paint can lid. After I laid the paint down, the heater was already off during painting. I'd let it fume out for like about 10-15 minutes, and then I'd shut the door and turn the heater back on, and I would bring the temperature back up in here so the paint can dry better. And I did that for every single coat. So every single coat when I did the fenders had like a 15-20 minute window. Even though when you watch the YouTube video of it, it looks like I literally painted it straight across. It's because I edited and tried to match up the multiple video cut, so you would see me somewhat in the same vicinity of where I started, because I usually kind of end up painting in the same spots, standing wise, so I'd always, whatever, that doesn't matter. So anyway, so that's what it looks like. I did it in one shot, which actually the fenders took me about a week to paint, because I go to my job during the day, and then I come home from work, and then I'm in here for X amount of hours trying to get this truck done. So, alright, so we painted that right, we did the temperature right. You also have to do the prepping and the cleaning right. You got to use the grease and wax remover. You got to do the glass cleaner. You don't have to use the glass cleaner, but that was from Paint Society. It was another type of cleaner, and they said Safeway glass cleaner, and that was the only one I was able to find, so I went for the glass cleaner. I bought the I don't know where the hell it went, the wax remover. It's somewhere in this area. But nevertheless, you guys saw that already. The rags, the tack cloth, the sanding, etc., 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 etc. So you got to make sure you do all those preps all the way down. I did everything spot on, by the book, with the fenders. When it came to the tailgate, I thought because it was one simple small piece, I could bang that out in like 2 days, 12 hours, get it clear coated, let it sit for like 2 days, and then today, which is Saturday, May 21st, to give you a time frame on how long this has been going on for. Mind you, everything else takes a week or two. So this project's been going on for way too long, in my book. But I got to stop trying to rush something, because then it's just I'm going to be doing this with everything I got to paint. And there's only 2 more things to paint. I got to paint this, get this back on the truck, then get the hood off, bring the hood in here and prep it and paint it. And then when the hood's done, the fenders can go on, the engine bay parts and miscellaneous crap can get reattached, the hood can get plopped back on top, and then I can jump into installing the onboard air system, which that is far, far light years from now, and forget about that shit. So, because I rushed the paint, so being I did that by the book, the fenders came out great. The problem is when I did this, the garage was open, I wasn't running the heater, I wasn't watching the temperature, and I rushed my coats. So what happens is when you lay down a coat of base coat, you do your primer, you sand it, you smooth it out, make sure it's nice and smooth. I did all that right, everything was great leading up to the painting stage. I paint the base. When you put the base on, you do a nice sweep down and back and down and back and down and back. And when you get to the other side, you can come back down at that same rate. I've done that before, and it's fine. You could just do one way up and stop, or you could go up and then down. That's fine. You could do that. That works perfectly fine. There's no issue with that. The issue is that's one coat. When you go to do your second coat, you have to wait at least 15-20 minutes. I did not. I did the coat, and I would go do another coat within 3 or 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes later. I'd go hit it with another coat. and then another coat, and 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 I kept doing that. And I wasn't letting it to dry. Now, what is a solvent pop? Because now you're probably wondering, you probably already Googled it, or you probably already know. What a solvent pop is inside the paint. What the fuck? What I hit my finger with? Inside the paint. I feel like I got stabbed by a piece of metal. Probably did. A metal splinter or something. Anyway, what a solvent pop is basically inside the paint there's different solvents and different chemicals. Obviously. Well, when you spray it on, which is why you should be wearing a mask when you're doing all this stuff, so you don't breathe it in, it gets into your lungs and it's in your throat, and etc., etc. It as the paint is slowly drying, it's releasing these chemicals into the air, these solvents. So these solvents are coming up into the air. It's kind of like when you have boiling water. The water is boiling, you got all these bubbles, and you know the water is being evaporated out of the pot, and it goes into the air, and you get steam. Same thing with the chemical solvents that are in the paint. So because when I did that first layer of paint, I didn't give it 20 minutes. The chemicals and the solvents that were being released into the air were, so as they're releasing, I put another coat on top of it. Now it's got a little layer like that. And you do layer and layer and layer. Well, when I did that all the way through with the base coat, and when I got down to the last coat of base, I checked the surface. The surface of the paint was smooth. There was no solvent bumps in it, bubbles and pops and whatever you want to call them. It was great. I knew I had this by the balls. I let it sit for 12 hours. I didn't give it enough drying time. You know why I didn't give enough drying time? Is that when I tried to touch it, it didn't really feel tacky, but it kind of felt a little tacky. Well, that tackiness is the solvents that are being released out of the paint. Well, because I didn't let them release 100%, it still had that little tacky, tarry feel to it, but sometimes I wasn't sure if that was just the gloves or that was the paint. What I should have done was, after the base coat was done, give it a good 24 hours plus to dry, leave it in the garage with the door shut, with the heater on. It would bring the temperature up to about 80 degrees and change in here, and it would dry that paint out really quick, which is what you want, nice and dry, but also would help release all the solvents out of it. Yes, they get into the atmosphere in here. They might seep into my house a little bit. Nothing that's going to kill anybody. It's a very small amount. It's not like I have a giant car in here. You know, I'm not painting this big-ass, container ship in here or painting the walls with it. Then you're going to have some issues of, chemicals getting into your house. So because after that final base coat, I didn't let it dry 100%, it still had solvents that were being released from it. You need to get to a point where it was dry. And I don't know if you guys remember on the video from the fenders, but when I did the fenders, that paint was almost flat before I did the clear coat. This had a shiny gloss to it. That shows you that the paint wasn't 100% dry, and because I was rushing to get it done for this weekend, which now I can't put it on the truck. I might be able to put it on tomorrow if I'm done talking to you guys, but we don't know yet. So because I rushed that, now I'm being taken, now I wasted all this time. If I did it right the first time, I wouldn't have had this issue. And then we'd be installing, this would be a different video. I'd be throwing it on the truck and then waiting for the crazy wacky weather I have to stop so I can bring the hood inside, and then we could be talking about doing that. So unfortunately, my own stupidity led me to this. But this is good too, because I learned something and I get to teach you guys something too that you're watching. So I got down to the clear coat, and the clear coat is the same way. You need at least 15 to 20 minutes for it to dry, depending on the temperature of your environment. If it's controlled, you're looking at 15-20 minutes. If you're doing it half-assed like I did, you're looking to who knows how long, but it's definitely going to be over 20 minutes. So I put the clear coat on and I rushed it. I rushed the clear coat quick. I was using a different clear coat. Instead of using the clear coat that I got from Scratch Happens, I'm using this expensive clear coat from Eastwood that has an activator in it and all this other miscellaneous crap. And I shaked them to the right specs. I did everything 2 minutes pre-check, put the red dot stopper in it, pop the can, release the stuff into it, shake it upside down, shake it right side up for 2 minutes. I shook it down to where it's supposed to be on the specs. The problem was that when I went to laying it on my canvas, that's where I ended up brushing again. So now I rushed the clear coat on there, and it looked great when I was done. But you need the clear coat 15-20 minutes between each coat. And just like the base coat, I rushed the clear coat because when I put it on, it looked great. So I come back 5-6 minutes later, it looks great. Okay, I did it again, and I did that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And when I was finally done with the clear coat and I'm filming the end of that episode, I started seeing the solvent pops up on the paint. And I just ended the episode because I knew at that point I was heading down a road. I was pissed off, I was tired, I was aggravated. I needed to stop. Because if I didn't stop, then I'm going to go crazy, and the paint was still wet and tacky, and I was touching different spots like up here. So up here, if you guys remember, this is the handles here, and up on this side here is going to be a metal trim that goes up here and then under the bottom of the tailgate. So I could touch back here when it was wet, and I'm touching it, trying to see what it is, seeing if it's pollen, seeing if it's dust, it's dirt, trying to figure out how the hell did the pollen get in here at this large range of bumps on it. That's what I thought it was dirt and stuff. But then when I looked online and I saw photos and videos of it, I realized that it wasn't just pollen or dirt. It was what's known as a chemical reaction known as solvent pop. And it's because the clear coat that I laid on top, so many layers of it so fast that it was that same issue again. I laid the clear coat down, and then within 5 or 6 minutes later, I put another layer of clear coat. See? And you're doing this and this and this all the way up. And what happens is the solvents are being released into the air, and because they're in the process of releasing, I'm putting another layer of paint on top, and it makes a bubble. And as it's drying, that bubble is now hardening the top layer of that clear coat. And you do it over and over and over again, and now you got these 90 million little pimples all over your project. That's the cause of it. Now the fixing part, and hopefully it's not going to take another 16 minutes of me talking to you guys, but it might. That's how you prevent that from happening. So do your research on it. Look it up online. Check out Paint Society on Facebook and YouTube. Like I said, I watched those guys. The fenders came out awesome. I didn't pay attention to them, and this is what I got. Apparently this happens with a lot of people. It happens with everybody. It's happened to them. It happens to professionals. You rush something, it's going to get messed up. Hence is the terminology, as they always say, haste makes waste, right? I hate that terminology. But here's a good example of it. It was a Tuesday project. I went from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was the clear coat, Thursday I gave up, Friday I was working on the army truck, it's now Saturday, and we got to fix the waste. So, how do we fix this? Well, the first thing you're going to need to do, after you do all your research on it, on how to fix solvent pop. There's a ton of videos on YouTube, and I hope this is going to be your clearest one that you share with your friends and stuff, and you watch multiple times. It's coming down to a sanding point. You're going to want a wet sand. Now, the biggest key is getting your sandpaper. Now, you don't want to be using a hand sander, or a palm sander. You want to be doing this all by hand. And it all comes down to is the grit. Now, I got this on Amazon, and it was a pack of like, I don't know how many is in this pack. I think it's like there's a lot. Well, there's a lot. That's how much is in here. This goes from I think 1,000 grit to I think 3,000. I thought it said 6,000. I know it says 3,000 on that package. It was 3,000 I have up to. So from 1,000 to 3,000, all I'm going to be doing it is by hand, but I got like this little hand tool that I'm going to attach it to that I've had for years. This guy right here. I'm not going to be putting a lot of pressure. So the first stage of fixing these things is wet sanding. I'm going to try to get you guys in a spot so you can actually peer down onto it a lot better than being up over here. But anyway, I'm going to attach that sandpaper here. I'm going to wet sand it. The biggest thing is getting this wet. You got to get it wet. You got to get it wet. So take it like a sponge or something. If you don't want to use this, then use your hand. I might just use my hand just to be a little bit more safer with it. You're not putting any pressure on it. You're basically lightly skimming that surface with 1,000 grit sandpaper. You don't want to go back and forth. You do want to go back and forth. My brain ain't working anymore. What you don't want to do is like swirl it. If you start swirling it, you're going to have more issues. You're getting scratches in different areas. It kind of sucks now, right? You got this nice gloss. You're kind of questioning on doing this. Now you're going to make it all scuffed up and rough again. And you're like, sucks. Start off with 1,000 grit sandpaper. And I'm going to go back and forth like that over the surface. Nice and light. back and forth, 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 following the grain of this. So I'm going to go from one end, I'm going to work my way all the way down with 1,000 grit sandpaper. Then I'm going to go to 1,200. I'm going to slowly go up increments. So either 1,200, 1,500, whatever I have that's in that pack. You know, it might be 1,100. It might be 12, it might be 13, it might be 16, it might be 1,800, you know, 2,000. I know it goes from 1,000 to 3,000. So that's my spectrum of my wet sanding. Once it's wet sanded, and we'll hit it with 3,000 grit sandpaper, so now it's going to be really extra smooth. It's going to be dull. You don't want to throw clear coat back on. We've got to fix our problem. So once that's done and you do all your sanding on it, the next thing you got to do is also make sure you have like an automotive buffing wheel. This isn't going to work by doing this by hand. I've already looked into it. You have to have a buffing wheel. You're going to have two items that you need to get. You're going to need a compound and you're going to need a polish. It doesn't matter which one you go for. You can look up which one is the best. I have these two. I have the compound. I have the polish from Meguiar's. I've had them in my garage for a while, so I don't really know if they're still good at all. I'm going to find out when I open them. I might have to run to the parts store and buy new ones. But the first one you're going to be using is the compound, and it shows even on the photo of it being scuffy. It's hard to see, and it makes it a little shinier. You're going to put the compound on, and then after the compound you're going to do the polish. The compound takes a certain type of an attachment that kind of looks like a rug, like one of those rugs from the 80s and the 70s where it's like, you know, like matty and stuff, I guess. Kind of like a broom. Not really like a rug, but look kind of like a mop brush, kind of these like little, I don't even know what to call it, but it's got like these little Medusa looking fabric coming off of it. You start off with that with the compound. That is where you can do the, you know, your circular motion on it. You don't have to go back and forth. You're going to do your circular motion really light, and you're not going to stay in one spot. You're just going to go like that, you know. Like I said, all that you could look up online exactly how to do that. This is also going to be a first for me, wet sanding it like that and also running the compound and polish. I've never done it like that. I've always done stuff by hand. It's probably why that stuff never came out that good. So, after the compound's done, I see them where they wipe it off, wipe it right with like a rag, and then they hit it with that polish. And then you do that polish the same way. You don't want to put a lot on because then it's all over the place, including yourself. And then once the polish is on, after the wet sanding is done, after the compounding is done, once that polish is on that surface and you give it a nice wipe down, you can also put like another wax on top of it if you want to. But before that, you just give it a nice wipe and look at it. If it looks mint from one end to the other, give it a light little coat of wax on it, and you're done. That part is done. You could let it sit in your garage, your house, you could stick it over your bed, or you can then go and put it on your project vehicle and then move on to the next fiasco. So I'm going to start jumping into that now. I hope that was enough information. I hope I didn't lose anybody there. I hope I talk slow enough. Sometimes I don't. Maybe I talk too slow. Nevertheless. All that stuff you could find online. You can get the sandpaper online. You can get all the miscellaneous stuff. Like I said, I'm going to throw all of that stuff in the link, all those links in the description, so you guys could just grab them quick. You're not, you know, going back and forth through the video trying to say, what did he say? What the I was just going to be sander I use, or, you know, sandpaper and etc, etc, etc. So you guys can just grab those links, order that shit, and fix your project if you are in the wonderful realm of myself of fixing the project. And if you're lucky enough not to have this, congratulations. If you have fish eyes or the orange peel, check out other videos about that. I'll throw those links in the description because I looked at those as well on how to fix those. Some people tried putting super glue. I wouldn't do anything that dramatic. I mean, it might work. You know, I just like to see what it looks like 10 years later if that super glue, you know, was like crystal white or it fell out or, you know, whatever else. So nevertheless, from that, I'm going to start off with, you know, after just touching the surface a lot, I'm going to start off with just doing a glass cleaner on it, spray away glass cleaner, clean it up, cough a little bit, and then once that's all cleaned up, then I'm going to get it wet. I'm going to have gloves on and stuff. I'm going to just lightly wet sand it with the 1000, work my way down. I'm going to try to find a spot where I can stick you guys so you guys can see it a lot better versus, you know, being up in the moon over here. And then, hopefully we get some headway here. Alright guys, so we started off, I don't know if you guys caught that quick with the different grits. We started off at 1,000 grit and we ended at 3,000. And I have to say, it is really smooth to the touch. It is nice. Biggest key that you kind of saw that I was having issues sometimes with is keeping the sandpaper wrapped around my hand. Problem is between the gloves and the water, and sometimes the gloves would kind of catch the corners and so forth. The sandpaper would fall off, and that was the only issue I was really having with that. It's tough on your back and it's tough on your hands after a while, and all I was doing was just lightly going over it. And what's great with your hand is you can actually feel the bumps from the start to where I'm at now. So I'm going to let it dry, and as you can see, it's starting to dry right here. It looks really great. It looks like I polished it and it's ready to go, but it's not. It's going to dry to like a very flat finish. Because you know, I didn't go past the clear coat. One of the good things to pay attention to while you're doing this is the color of your water. As you're doing this, your water is going to be like a milky white color. So that means that you're sanding the clear coat, which is what you want to do. If you start seeing like the color of the paint, like the blue in the water, that means you went through the clear coat and you're down into the base paint. Now I would only do that if I needed to. The only thing you can see left is these like little specks, but they're smooth to the touch. They're completely flat. I already tested them before, so they're not still there. What is involved from here now is the compounding. So what I want to do is I want to literally just let this air dry out. I got the garage door open, obviously. I wiped it down with a towel. I'm going to just let it air dry, and then I'm going to take out my buffer, put the wheel cover on it that I need, check my compound, make sure the compound's still good that I need, and I'm going to compound the whole thing. When the compounding's done, I'm going to wipe it down, and I'm going to hit it with the polish, and hopefully this thing will look as good as it did when I was sanding it. Because there was sometimes I look back at the camera and this thing was like crazy mirror finish that just looked phenomenal. So as you can see, as it's drying as I'm talking, I'm just going to let it completely air dry. Just completely air dry, which is good too, because first of all, it gives me time to set up the sander and hunt down that stuff and try to clean up some of this water. Second of all, it gives my back and my arms a break, because my back was killing me. I had to stop sometimes. I would do like two different grit, you know, 2 papers, and I'd take a break, and then do another 2 papers, and then take another break. I was taking 5-10 minute breaks in between, just because it was just really starting to like hurt. My back was really starting to hurt. My hands were starting to hurt. I'm 32, man, and I had a rough ass life of working on cars and doing a lot of labor jobs. So after a while, whew, my back and my arms start hurting, and carrying this extra pack of beer over here does not help me at all. That adds stress to my back. So, I mean, lifting stuff stupidly by myself doesn't help anything either. But no, it's coming out really, really nice. It looks nice and smooth. I tried to keep it as straight as possible, going back and forth, and just following the lines of the bumps with my fingers. I didn't want to put too much pressure down, because I felt like if I did too hard of a pressure, I would go through the clear coat. So you can see it like in some weird spots, like here, it kind of looks really bad, but this is all smooth. It's not rough at all. It's very smooth. So obviously you can see like kind of how bad it was. Like here it wasn't too bad, but over here it was bad, and here it was bad, and there it was bad. That means I added a lot of too much, you know, paint at one time in certain spots. So anyway, let's just let that air dry, and then we'll pick this up as soon as it dries. Guys, so now it's nice and dry after it's been sitting for about probably 20 minutes, a half an hour. Started uploading another episode. Oh man. Whew. Well, now the fun is about to begin. So we got the pad on the buffer. We got our compound. I checked it, I shook it, stirred it all up. First thing we're going to do is we're going to lay it on here, the compound. We're going to smooth it all out so it's all over the surface of the tailgate. Put a little bit of compound on the wheels so it's not a dry contact onto it. Everything's all nice and coated. And we're just going to start it. You know, we're going to start our nice little, small little circles. The tailgate's kind of tough on here because you have a nice big fat. Cut that out. We have a nice big flat surface right here, and then we got a small surface here, a big surface here, And then we got the groove. So it's going to be a little tough trying to get the compound in the right spots. And what the compound's going to do is basically going to start help turning this back into what we want it to turn into. Hopefully, right? We're all hoping, man. I'm hoping I can get this done today, and I can slap this mother plucker back on the truck, and I can rip the hood off of this truck, and that's it. But we don't know. We don't know. And we don't want to rush things. Because you already saw what happened when I started getting rushing. Almost made a bad joke. You saw when I started rushing the project, and now look at where we're at. You know, it was nice and shiny and glossy, but it had acne. We got rid of the acne. Okay, it's smooth to the touch. I touched it, I rubbed it, it's smooth. Stage, we're going to compound it. We got to make up new words as we're talking. I'm going to compound it. I'm going to wipe it down with a towel. I'm going to slap the polish on it and pray that she looks good. Not okay. It looked okay with the pimples on it. We gotta make it look good. We gotta make this look good. We gotta make this car show quality. You know, like where I take it and I bring it to a car show and here's my vehicle, or just a Tailgate. No, you know, just you want it up to your own standard, whatever your standard is. If it looks like shit, but you like it, that's fine. That's your shit. If it looks great, it looks amazing, it looks awesome, that's your thing. Everybody's got their own little thing. Some people want car show quality. You know what car show quality is? Anything that you can explain to the judges. I brought my military truck. It's got rust. It's got rot holes in it. It's some of the lights on it don't work apparently. I know as much as I know about it, and I got a second prize trophy. I don't know if you guys know that yet. I put it inside my house so I wouldn't knock it over by accident. But I got second place trophy. Which a lot of people go, well, if you're not first, you're late. Doesn't matter. I got a trophy for it. It was great. It was an awesome show. I was there for 8 hours. I went back to work the next day and I looked like a lobster.